Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on these raw, real stories that dive deep into life's toughest moments. Today, I've got something special for you. This is a story about words that fail and bodies that endure, drawn from the intense, life-altering testimony of a person who is 19 years old. Yeah, 19. Old enough to have seen some serious ups and downs, but young enough that the scars still feel fresh. Buckle up, because this isn't just a quick tale. It's my journey, unpacked in detail with all the twists, the pain, and the triumphs. If you've ever felt like your body was a battleground or your words just wouldn't come out right, this one's for you. Let's get into it.
These stories are based on real-life incidents. Names, locations, and certain details have been changed to protect privacy. The purpose of this content is for awareness and informational storytelling only. We do not intend to target or defame any individual, group, or organization.
I am 19 years old. That number might not sound like much to some of you. Maybe you're thinking, she's just starting out in life. But let me tell you, the experiences packed into these 19 years feel like they've aged me way beyond that. It's like carrying around an old soul in a young body. The milestones, 7, 12, 19, they're not just dates on a calendar. They're etched into my memory like battle scars. 7 was innocence shattered. 12 was a double whammy of scrutiny and trauma. And now, at 19, I'm finally finding the strength to piece it all together and share it. I've got this overwhelming amount to say. It's like a volcano inside me. Words bubbling up, colorful and chaotic, demanding to erupt. But they don't always flow easily. Why? Because I'm autistic. That means my brain processes everything in this intricate, detailed way. Thoughts, feelings, sensations, all weaving together into a complex web. But bridging that web to the outside world through language, that's where the struggle hits hard. The words get stuck, tangled up behind my teeth, leaving me feeling marooned on an island of my own making. This video, this script I'm sharing with you today, is my attempt to build that bridge. It's shaky, it's temporary, but it's built on the concrete truths I've clung to through it all. And trust me, there's a lot to unpack here, enough to fill way more than a quick chat. So, settle in, we're going deep. Let's rewind the clock to when I was 7. Picture this, a little kid, all wide-eyed and full of wonder. 7 is supposed to be about simple joys. Running around the playground, drawing with crayons in bright primary colors, laughing at silly cartoons, maybe getting a scraped knee from climbing too high on the monkey bars. It's the age of easy friendships, ice cream cones on hot summer days, and bedtime stories that whisk you away to magical lands. For most kids, it's uncomplicated geometries, squares, circles, triangles. No heavy burdens, just pure, unfiltered fun. But for me, 7 was the year the world decided to crash that party with its quiet, insidious cruelty. That's when I got my formal introduction to diet culture. It wasn't some subtle hint or a gradual slide into awareness. No, it was like being handed an engraved invitation to a toxic event I never RSVP'd for. Diet culture shook my hand and said, "Hello, welcome to a lifetime of doubting yourself." And the voice delivering that message, it was my mom's. Now, don't get me wrong, my mom loves me fiercely. But she had her own demons when it came to food and body image. I'd watch her in the kitchen, this ghost of a struggle hovering over her like a shadow. She'd weigh out portions on a little scale, meticulously counting calories as if they were enemies to be defeated. Her words about food were always measured, laced with this undercurrent of guilt and control. It was palpable, like you could feel the tension in the air every time a meal was prepared. But her struggle didn't stay contained. It spilled over onto me. She projected it, expecting, no, demanding that I be skinnier than she ever managed to be. That expectation turned into an unspoken rule, a covenant that defined parts of our relationship from then on. It was swift and definitive, like a door slamming shut on my childhood innocence. At 7 years old, my body, this miraculous vehicle that carried me through play dates and school days, was suddenly deemed faulty. Too large, too soft, not streamlined enough for the world's approval, not thin enough for the woman who had birthed me, nurtured me, and now, inadvertently, was teaching me to see myself as a problem to be fixed. The words of diet culture are like ice, cold, precise, and capable of cutting deep into your self-worth. And when they came from my mom's lips, they carried this mix of authority and love that made them impossible to ignore or shake off. It was judgment wrapped in concern, and it landed like a punch to the gut. How does a 7-year-old even begin to process a command like that? Shrink yourself. Be less. Take up less space. I remember the confusion washing over me like a wave. My body had always just been. It ran, it jumped, it hugged. Now it was wrong? The overwhelming amount to say started right there, in that moment. A small, frustrated hum building inside my chest. A protest against this notion that my form needed calibration, reduction, perfection. But as an autistic kid, words were already my Achilles heel. I didn't have the vocabulary to defend myself, to articulate why this felt so inherently unfair. There was no script for saying, "Mom, my body is fine as it is. I deserve to exist without apology." Instead, there was just the echo of her voice, the weight of her expectations, and this growing sense that I had to succeed where she felt she'd failed, to be skinnier, smaller, more acceptable. It planted a seed of self-doubt that would grow roots over the years, twisting deeper with every passing birthday. As time marched on, those expectations didn't fade. They solidified, turning into rigid boundaries that shaped my worldview. I navigated elementary school with this shadow over me, comparing myself to classmates, skipping snacks at parties because I could hear that voice in my head. By the time I hit 12, things escalated. Puberty was kicking in, that awkward phase where your body changes overnight and everything feels out of whack. Hormones raging, emotions all over the place. It's tough for any kid. But for me, it coincided with entering a new arena of body scrutiny, modeling. Yeah, at 12, I started modeling. It seems like a potential escape at first, or maybe a way to channel the pressures I'd internalized since 7. I thought, hey, if I can perform this version of beautiful that the world wants, maybe the internal battle will quiet down. Maybe I'll finally feel like I measure up. Visibility, right? A spotlight that could validate me. But stepping into that world was like jumping from the frying pan into the fire. The standards, they weren't human. They were these geometric impossibilities. Waistlines that defied biology, skin airbrushed to porcelain perfection, poses that contorted the body into shadows and light tricks. I knew, deep in my gut, the moment I walked into my first studio, that I'd never come close to touching those ideals. They were filtered fantasies, photoshopped dreams sold as reality. Imagine being 12, standing under those harsh, unforgiving lights, your body on display like a mannequin. Photographers barking orders. Suck in, angle this way, hide that curve. Makeup artists poking and prodding. Stylists squeezing you into clothes 2 sizes too small. I'd internalized the not enough message from home, and now it was amplified 1,000-fold.
Every shoot was a reminder. Your hips are too wide, your collarbones not sharp enough, your presence too much. The internal script in my head was a loop of desperation. I am enough. I am enough. But the camera demanded less. Less mass, fewer flaws, less of the real me. Rejections piled up like discarded outfits. Not the right look. Needs to tone up. Too curvy for this campaign. Each one chipped away at my fragile self-esteem.
The modeling industry was essentially diet culture on steroids, an extension of the rules I'd learned at 7, now enforced by professionals with clipboards and measuring tapes. It wasn't just about looking good, it was about conforming to a mold that squeezed the life out of you. And being autistic made it even harder. Sensory overload from the lights, the chatter, the fabrics against my skin, it was overwhelming. I'd have meltdowns in the dressing room, words failing me when I needed to advocate for myself. This feels wrong, I'd think, but saying it out loud? Impossible. So I pushed through, smiling for the lens, while inside a storm raged. I fought 2 battles at once. The external pressure to shrink and the internal struggle to articulate the profound disconnect. Autism meant my emotions were vivid, technicolor explosions, but translating them into words was like trying to catch smoke with your hands.
But the scrutiny from modeling, as painful as it was, paled in comparison to a far more insidious trauma that hit me that same year, at 12. While I was navigating puberty's chaos and the public eye's judgment, the safety of my everyday routine was shattered in the worst way possible. I was assaulted. This wasn't a one-off incident, something I could box up and forget. No, it dragged on for months on end, turning what should have been mundane into a recurring nightmare. The setting? The school bus. That yellow hunk of metal meant for gossiping with friends, doodling in notebooks, or just zoning out to music on the ride home. For me, it became a moving prison, a cage on wheels where fear lurked around every turn.
The assailants were 2 boys, one from my bus route and his friend. The details are stark, clinical, and heartbreaking. Assaulted at 12, repeatedly, over months, by these 2. It started subtly, unwanted touches, comments that made my skin crawl, but escalated into full-blown violation. The bus driver oblivious, other kids too wrapped up in their own worlds to notice or intervene. I'd sit there, heart pounding, the proximity of them a constant threat. Day after day, the terror built, layering on top of everything else. The profound irony? My struggle with words meant I couldn't cry out for help. I had an overwhelming torrent inside. The fear, the shame, the degradation, the desperate plea for it to stop. But autism trapped it all. The bridge was broken. No words crossed over. Being forcibly diminished like that, when you're already fighting to not shrink yourself, was psychological warfare at its cruelest. It reinforced every negative message. Your body isn't yours. It's an object to be judged, consumed, violated. Diet culture said fix it, modeling said perfect it, and the assault said it's not even under your control. It was a terrifying accumulation. Mom's voice echoing from 7, industry's demands at 12, and now this crushing blow. I felt like my body was a battlefield, scarred and weary, with no end in sight. Those months blurred into a haze of survival mode. I'd board the bus with dread knotting my stomach, strategizing where to sit to minimize contact. Nights were sleepless, replaying incidents, questioning if it was my fault. Did I smile too much? Wear the wrong clothes? The guilt was irrational but real,
fed by the silence I couldn't break. School suffered. Grades slipped as concentration evaporated. Friends noticed I was off, but when they asked, words failed again. "I'm fine," I'd mumble, while inside a scream echoed. Autism compounded it all. Sensory sensitivities made the physical violations even more traumatic. Like every touch was amplified 100 times. But here's where the story starts to turn. Despite the horror, the introduction to diet culture at 7, the impossible modeling standards at 12, the months-long assault at 12, a resilient truth began to form inside me. It didn't happen overnight. It was forged in the fire of those experiences, tempered by time. By 13, 14, I was starting to question the narratives forced on me. Therapy helped, though finding the right words in sessions was a battle too. I learned coping strategies, journaling when speech failed, using art to express the chaos. High school brought new challenges, peer pressure, dating scenes that triggered old fears, but also allies, a supportive teacher who recognized my autism and advocated for accommodations, friends who listened without judgment when I finally opened up, bit by bit. At 15, I quit modeling. It was liberating, like shedding a skin that never fit. I focused on school, discovering passions like writing and advocacy. Words still struggled, but practice made the bridge sturdier. I joined support groups for assault survivors, where sharing stories in safe spaces built my confidence. Hearing others echo my pain normalized it, showed me I wasn't alone. Autism communities online became lifelines. Forums where neurodivergent folks shared tips on communication, sensory management. I experimented with AAC devices, apps that helped when verbal words jammed. By 16, the philosophical shift deepened. I started viewing my body not as a flaw, but as a gift. Therapy sessions delved into body positivity, challenging diet culture's grip. I read books, feminist texts, autobiographies of survivors that reframed my experiences. "Your body is a loan from the universe," one author wrote, and it stuck. A loan, temporarily yours, to steward with care, not to own or destroy, but to honor. This lens changed everything. The assault, it violated the loan but didn't break the spirit. Diet culture? A false narrative trying to devalue the gift. Modeling? A system profiting off insecurity. 17 brought activism. I volunteered at women's shelters, spoke haltingly at first at school events about body autonomy. Words flowed better with preparation. Scripts, like this one. I advocated for better bus safety protocols, sharing anonymized stories to push change. College at 18 was a fresh start, away from home, exploring independence. But triggers lingered. A crowded party, echoing bus confinement, a comment on my weight, reviving old echoes. I leaned on coping tools, mindfulness apps for autism meltdowns, therapy for PTSD flashbacks. Now, at 19, I'm in college, majoring in psychology with a focus on neurodiversity and trauma recovery. The overwhelming amount to say has found outlets. Blogs, this channel, poetry slams. I'm not fixed. Autism is part of me, a strength in its depth. The message burns brighter. You are enough. Not a platitude, but a battle cry against systems that diminish us. Let's expand on that philosophy, because it's the heart of why I'm here. Your body is a gift from the universe, a marvel of evolution, atoms assembled over eons into this breathing, feeling form. It's resilient, adapting to stresses we throw at it. But it's alone, borrowed for this lifetime. Terms? Respect it, nourish it, protect it. Don't warp it for fleeting ideals. The assault taught me violation's pain, but also resilience's power. Diet culture's voice? I counter it daily with affirmations. I am enough. Think of the soil, the ultimate return. Why destroy what decomposes back to earth? Honor the cycle. This mindset healed me, turning scars into stories. Analogy time. Navigating these burdens with word struggles is like holding a detailed map but drawing with broken chalk. The path's there, but communication falters, yet the message persists. Honor your lone. To those inspiring girls, autistic folks, survivors, know your worth. Bodies endure, spirits triumph. We've covered a lot, from 7's awakening to 19's empowerment. If this resonates, like, comment your stories, subscribe. What's your enough moment? Let's empower each other. Peace out.